arrived. You'd only have to say it's Dusty Springfield. Welcome.
What? Good morning.
Are you all right? Good morning, my love. Are you well?
I am. I'm in a coma. I'm half asleep. How do you do this every morning?
Oh, it just happens. Even mornings you aren't doing it, you still wake up at the same time. Dusty, it's really just to say good morning to you now and let you settle down and maybe get a cup of a well-known breakfast cereal or something like that. Just tell me one thing. Where have you been for so long?
I'll answer that afterwards. There's not enough time.
Are you glad to be back and in the sort of glamour again?
Extremely.
Good.
Even at this hour of the morning.
And managing to put up with the likes of P. Stringfellow, etc.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you more about that later,
too.
Good.
These are excellent. These are all teases. And we're going to have more time to chat with Dusty Springfield later in the morning. Now, welcome back. Good morning if you've just got up, and I can tell you that it's 10 minutes to 8, and it's August the 12th, and you're watching Good Morning Britain from TVAM with myself and Anne and Dusty Springfield. Now,
who can't get comfortable at all?
Well, relax.
All right.
Take a couple of seconds and squiggle your bottom into the couch and everything. Yeah, get rid of the cushion. That's it. Excellent. Now you're much happier. Now I was.
Try that one as well. You don't like that one either.
Now, we'd hardly got the length of saying hello to you there a couple of minutes ago when we had to go off and do Popeye and things like that. But you were saying that you're glad, as it were, to be back and to be.
Of course.
Doing it again. What does it mean to you now to be back this time?
I think it's a tremendous challenge, which is one of the reasons I stopped singing, is because I had lost that stimulation and that sense of challenge. And it took me an inordinate length of time to discover that I'm a singer and I'm meant to sing, so I might as well just get up off my you-know-what and get back to business.
Yeah. Now, the last time that we heard of you, it was really as you were partying, and you seemed to go with the 60s, didn't you? The 60s went like snow off a ditch.
Smoke and hairspray. She disappeared.
And where did you disappear to, Dusty?
To the plastic world of California.
Did you like it?
Initially, yes. In fact, I do quite like it. But for reasons that have got nothing to do with show business. I mean, living in Los Angeles, of course, is not living in California, much as New York is not living in the rest of the States either. Los Angeles I chose to go to because I was being managed there at that time.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a good idea at the time, and it was for a long time, but you get pretty lost out there.
And did any one thing happen, or was it a combination of the passage of history and just your own sort of irritation, your own itchiness, to cause you to come back, or to try and make a comeback?
It was actually something I didn't solicit at all, and I'm definitely not into. Yeah. In any way, it was more than coincidence. I was moving flats, and the phone rang. It was the last day. You know when you go to check up to see if you've emptied all the drawers and all that.
Yeah.
And the phone rang, and it was out of nowhere Anne Murray's manager, who said, "Could I come here and do a TV special with Anne?" Which was done from the Albert Hall, but it hasn't been shown here yet. And then quite suddenly, in the new flat, and I don't know how people were finding me, the calls started coming in. And I hadn't made any calls, so it was quite extraordinary. And it seemed to me a definite sign that I should be doing something.
When you came back and you made the first sort of re-entry into the pop atmosphere, what was the most noticeable change?
This time around?
Yeah, compared to the 60s.
Because somebody said I made a career of comebacks. I would hardly call that quite true, but that's the word that we use. What's the most noticeable thing? That there's far more competition now, that the music is better than it's ever been.
Hey?
Oh, yes.
Now, a lot of 60s fans might not agree with you.
If Nick Owen, who, by the way, I just have to mention to you, is completely and totally in love with you and knows everything about you.
Lovely.
He'll be in bits that he's not here.
I'm doing fine with you.
But I mean, Anne was, as Anne was saying, a lot of us 60s folk would say.
60s nuts. Yeah, so
that's not so.
True.
Technically, perhaps I should say.
I see.
I mean,
there was something different about the 60s there. It's not. There was something idyllic
but a lot
about
of it doesn't stand up now. And when you listen to the charts now, it's very hard. The musical world has shrunk to such an extent that I look at Soul Train over here, and I can't make out whether the record has been made here or in the United States. And the fusion of music, I find it so much more exciting. And I suppose for me, on a personal level, it might have nothing to do with the public, but everything that I ever fought for in the 60s is now happening in the 80s.
How extraordinary.
That is nice.
It's both generous and provocative, I think, of you to say that. I bet we'll get some calls about that.
And your record here, Sometimes Like Butterflies, is actually released today. Yes.
Is it?
I think so.
Yes,
I think I'm right there. I think this is the day.
Monday.
Yes, this is
Monday.
Monday.
Yes.
The shops won't be open yet, but it is released today. And we're going to be hearing it a bit later on in the morning, about half an hour. We've got plenty of time to talk to Dusty.
We have indeed. Will we do some birthdays?
Yes.
Dusty, you have a birthday card there. Would you like to read it out for us?
Underneath the gun. This one?
Yeah.
Well, this is to wish you a happy birthday. Happy birthday to Sushma on the August the 12th, 85. It says, Dear Sushma, with love from Daddy, Mummy, and Sherry.
That's lovely. And I have...
And I don't know what camera I'm looking at because I can't see any of them anywhere.
I have a happy anniversary one here. It's for Claudine and Leslie Mark of Bangor in County Down, Stirling. Says, congratulations on your golden wedding.
Right?
Love from John, Joy, Claire and Sarah, Peter and Pina, Ken, Anne, Ian and Neil to Claudine and Leslie Mark of Bangor in County Down. Bless you. And by the way, I have to say that Owen Galligan, who's a very good young friend of mine, he got into double figures yesterday. He was 10. Well done, young man.
That's super.
Excellent.
Super.
So I've got two Irish people here, one either side, sandwiched in between. And please, could you wish our son Robert a very happy birthday? Lots of love from Mummy, Daddy, brother Nicky. And you don't say where you come from, or what your surname is, or how old you are, but I'm sure you know.
Those movements are so naff.
What's so naff?
Those movements.
What? I don't know. I think that was lovely to see that.
Revolutionary then.
Oh, yes. But, you know, now in retrospect, they seem so timid. But then they were quite daring.
But not only were the movements daring for the time, the programme itself and the general introduction to a wider audience of pop music was very revolutionary then, in its own way, wasn't it?
Well, it certainly was, because Associated Rediffusion was basically a news station, and therefore it approached pop music in a very documentary manner, which a lot of people then slavishly copied. But it was actually the first one to approach it in that manner without the slickness of big sets and everything. I mean, it was good sometimes and bad sometimes for the artists, you know. It was total chaos.
It was all live, was it?
It was live, and the director was always drunk, and half the people wouldn't show up, and
We have those problems from time to time.
They always had me coming down staircases, and I can't see a bloody thing anyway, so in hindsight, it's highly amusing. I mean, sometimes it was absolutely terrifying. The proximity of people, I think, was terrifying.
Yeah, now, was somebody sitting beside you there remembers the 60s?
Yes, Henry, a little reverential silence, because you are in the presence of the greatest female solo singer of our times.
I know that.
17 hits in a row. The only competition, Brenda Lee, I would say. 17 hits. Originally a folk singer with the Springfields. What happened to your brother Tom Springfield, who wrote all those fantastic songs?
He made a lot of money. I went to Rio and Greece and anywhere he wants to go. I don't know whether he's got any money left. I don't.
And now you're back again with an American accent.
After
After 14 years.
She sounds more Irish now.
Now, Confession Corner, it was people like me, newspaper executives,
Just because I
who
don't
drove
talk
you
like
out.
you.
I know, but we drove you out, didn't we, Fleet Street?
You had
I mean,
something
we
to
drove.
do with it.
Yeah, I thought so.
And you're
now
working
tell
at
us
it
all.
again, too.
Tell us all, Dusty.
No.
Why was it that you had such a bad time from Fleet Street when you were so great?
I had a marvellous time from Fleet Street. Then they got bored of being nice to me. So what do you do after 5 years?
Look how nice I'm being to you this morning. Can that be?
It's only your conscience is pricking you because of the terrible...
Dusty, do you feel that tremendous affection that the British public has for you? Because
Yes, I do, genuinely. And I'm not going to let myself be put off by various members of the press, i.e. whether ask me awkward questions or are just out to slag me anyway, particularly the musical papers. I mean, it is their business to just tear everybody up.
why do they do it?
Because they're not smart enough to write decent columns, so if they think they're rude and use a lot of four-letter words and call everybody pansy or whatever, that's chic. Whereas, you know, there are good musical paper writers, the Times and various other people, and they don't have to go through that to write a good piece. I mean, Jean Rook did a really marvellous piece the other day in the Daily Express, and she pushed me hard, but basically she was a great lady to do an interview with, and we liked each other immediately. There's people who've got not a whole lot of talent that like to write slam at you because that's all they know how to do. But this time I'm not going to let them drive me out.
You're not bothered any longer. You're above it now, aren't you?
That's right.
Does it matter?
I could say I don't give up, but I won't. I haven't got a bulletproof heart, but I have learned that it really doesn't matter up to a point.
Okay, a bulletproof heart. I like that. That's
Well, somebody called my makeup bulletproof, and that's all right. My heart is not.
Your heart is not. What was the big thing in the 60s for you? I mean, just the sheer excitement of the thing, the newness of it?
I think it was probably, I don't know how to put this without sounding conceited. All right, it's going to sound conceited. I was one of the few singers around that had a really hefty voice, you know, and I learnt that by slavishly imitating Americans. I mean, it was my dream to sound like the Shirelles or the Ronettes or whoever it was that day.
The Ronettes, yeah.
Or any of the Motown acts. And I think that being able to sort of have the freedom, especially on some of the albums I did in 63, 64, 65, a freedom in England that I never got when I went to the States. I mean, I was pretty eclectic in my choice of material. Yeah. And the British let me get away with it. And Americans never did. They always want to pigeonhole you. They have a great need to categorize.
Categorize. You see, maybe it's because we were in the 60s, well, certainly myself and Derek, but Anne was, of course, very small then.
She was but a mere whisper.
A mere whisper, indeed.
Near Dusty Springfield
we tend, and maybe it's sentimental nostalgia. We look back and we think it was much cleaner and much more open and much more free, and that the songs were better and the tunes were tunier and so on. Now you come along and you say, well, that's not so, because the music is better now technically anyway. But there seems to be an air of almost a seaminess about the pop world now that wasn't there in the 60s. How do you agree?
I think that it's just there's so much fusion of the pop world, rock, Latin, jazz, whatever, black, white, fashion. The whole thing has just sort of melded into one thing. And I find it, certainly on returning here, a much more exciting scene musically than it ever was before. The 60s, David Frost was saying this either last night or the night before, most people in this survey viewed the 60s as the best decade for a long time.
I can understand people collecting 60s memorabilia, but I couldn't understand anybody. What would you say from the 1980s? What pop memorabilia would you keep out?
There will be. I mean, look at it. I mean, you just had Simon & Barnes' Mammon. I mean, let's think of the innovative bands that are happening in the 80s. I think that on that program the other night, the survey was that in the 60s there was a great hope and expectation of things to come, and a great sort of, you know, that the whole early hippie movement and the mod movement and all those things were happening during the 60s. And I think people were looking into the future more and thinking that it was going to be great. So that made them think that the 60s were actually greater than they were.
Maybe so. There you go. The 60s
I had
were
a good
greater.
time.
Well, we all had a good time. It was terrific, and we're having a good time.
Well, yeah, indeed, the 60s. Now you've got
Derek edited nearly every newspaper in the 60s.
Madonna cavorting around in her mum's old bra.
Hold on a wee moment.
What's that got to do with you?
Don't start him off, Dusty. We've got to take a break. After that, I think it's going to be Chris Tarrant. Join us soon.
Get to the big bit yet.
Oh, no, well, when you release a video, we'll play the video.
Great.
Certainly
But it starts to wake up in about 20 seconds. All hell lets loose.
It's a beautiful sound. It really is. It's very Dusty Springfield, isn't it?
Yes, I've gone already. Oh,
he's
God.
Wake
That
up.
voice is back, folks.
Quickness, the screams.
Get the old heart going again.
When, as I said, you shot to fame in the 60s, as it were, where did you think up the eyes? I mean, the eyes are you, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mike, I can remember rows in our house about, you know, my sister wanting to go out in Dusty Springfield eyes. Where did they come from? Whose idea?
It was really it was mine. At that time in Paris, the models were wearing a lot of very, very dark eye makeup. And it was my attempt at getting it right, but I got it wrong. But it sort of became a trademark, so I just sort of stuck to it. Besides, it was a very time-saving device because I never took it off, except about every 3 weeks I would take it off.
You're kidding.
It took about 6 days to get a real good build-up, because if you put talcum powder on it at night, and then you build on it the next day. I mean,
Didn't they glue together?
Oh, many times, but, you know, sent for the doctor and everything was all right.
Wonderful.
What?
No, I was just going to say, you cover them with glasses when you take a shower or something like that, do you?
Well, no, you just take baths very carefully.
We better take a break very speedily and join us soon. Welcome back, which is nearly the last sort of furlong of the programme. It's 8:45, and of course after 9 o'clock the rat will be down the sewer. But Dusty Springfield is still with us, and so is Derek Jameson. You can meet the rat if you like.
Sure, you can meet the rat.
Dusty, tell us please what you've been doing beyond in America all those years. What did you actually do?
Actually, I did work quite consistently there and made albums, etc. But I got very involved with one particular animal cause.
Yes,
which was?
It's called Wildlife Way Station. It's the only shelter of its kind for abandoned or abused exotic animals. And exotic animals really is another word for anything you should not keep as a household pet. Anything from a snake or an otter, even a raccoon, to a very large Siberian tiger or a Kodiak bear.
Well, what was your involvement in it? You didn't...
Well, I'm just on the board of directors to try to raise the awareness of people that these animals are wild and they are not to be kept as household pets.
What sort of people were trying to?
Just people who want to be flash. The whole point is most of them are abused out of ignorance rather than a sense of cruelty. There are some who've been beaten up with crowbars and things. But basically, these animals, you buy a tiger cub, that's fun, you know, except that they forget they're going to grow up to be 450 pounds, 500 pounds a tiger. So they defang them, declaw them, and they can never go back into the wild. Neither can they go to a zoo because they'll be attacked by their own species and they are no longer a Class A exhibit. And so we get them, and we have about 600 animals up there that have just got nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Particularly bears that humans encourage by feeding them in the national parks. Then, of course, the bears get smart, even learn how to open cans, but they eventually will attack the humans for food. And they either get shot or we get them.
You were always fond of animals, though, weren't you?
Yes, enormously. I was never allowed to keep animals as a child, and so I got very reactionary about it when I grew up. I'm a complete cat freak.
Have you got any now?
I've got 2 in California called Fortnum and Sister Mary Catherine. And
Sister Mary Catherine?
Sister Mary Catherine, yes.
There must be a story behind that.
No, she just looks like a sister of charity. She's got the exact markings of a nun. Over here I have 2 that I borrowed from somebody. One is called Alfred, who's only that big, and one is called Bouffe, which I cannot translate because it's quite obscene. But if anyone knows French, they might want to. He's an amazing little cat, but he's twice the size of his brother.
So are you going to develop a system where you live in Britain and America?
That would be
You've
nice.
got a home in each place now?
No, I don't have a home here. Actually, I don't have a home in California either. I'm just living out of suitcases. I've decided to leave my life open as to where, you know, if anyone says go to Scandinavia, I go to Scandinavia. I just put everything in storage and said, let's go for it.
Well, I read in I think, the Sunday Times yesterday that really your comeback, as it were, and I think it's unkind to say you make a career of comebacks, because I haven't heard of you making a comeback before, was Peter Stringfellow's idea, the nightclub owner, entrepreneur.
Yes, Peter.
What did you think when he actually said, come on, I'm going to bring you back to Britain and we're going to launch you big? I mean, were you a bit frightened?
Well, it was Peter upset me because, I mean, I really liked the man, but his tendency was to think in terms of high-energy disco. And when he first approached me, albeit I was talking to other record companies who were large ones, but I didn't want to go that route again because you can get lost in the swim. So I thought, well, a smaller one with all the enthusiasm behind it and actually being able to talk face-to-face with the head of the record company would be a change for me, without going through hundreds of millions to reach that person. But it took a lot of talking and negotiating to reach the fact that I did not want to be a disco queen, because I'm just not. I'm just not. I look idiotic.
And what about this time round with the newspaper people constantly? I mean, they're going to like you said last time, they got fed up with being nice to you, they turned nasty. Do you think it could happen again, and how will you cope?
Well, they've already started.
I mean, the embarrassing questions and the private life.
Yes, they've always on about my private life. I'm beginning to develop a set of answers. I mean, it's really dumb of them to keep asking the same questions, because they're going to get the same answers, and they want different angles, but they keep answering this. So I decided I'm not going to do any more press for a while unless they're real quality pieces. I mean, like and Jean Rook did a really good piece, and McBride in the Times, and but the popular press just wants to have a go at me.
Well, I don't think the public want to read anything nasty about you. We've had some lovely phone calls, particularly from Alex and Jeff of your fan club, who say, good luck with your record. And we've had lots
Thanks,
of...
Alex.
Somebody else rang and said, we want to see Dusty dance, which is a bit unkind.
At this hour of the morning?
Anyway, it's been smashing to talk to you.
Yes.
Is this
Thank
the point
you.
where
And
we have to
last,
say
we have to say goodbye
have
to
to say
Dusty and
goodbye.
Derek, and to old, what's his
right.
name, Greavesy here, who's been hanging on
best
to
of
as
luck
well.
with the
Best of luck.
Thanks. It's been very nice.